I wake up every morning feeling like I'm already behind. It's a strange, heavy sensation, like the weight of the world has settled right on my chest before I even open my eyes. The clock on my nightstand blinks 6:30 a.m., and I know I have less than an hour before I need to leave the apartment to catch the bus. It's not that I don't want to stay in bed, I just can't afford to be late or miss work again. My job doesn't pay much, but I need every hour I can get just to make rent and keep the lights on. Financial pressure is this quiet storm swirling around me every day. It's there in the background of every decision I make, the invisible thread pulling at me constantly. When I open my laptop to check my bank account, a ritual I dread, the numbers rarely change in a way that feels like progress. Instead, I see the same low balance staring back, sometimes even less if I've had to dip into savings or pay an unexpected bill. The rent goes up again this month. The grocery prices keep climbing, and gas is no longer something I can take for granted. Everything costs more, but my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. I remember the dreams I used to have, back when I was younger and the world felt full of possibilities. I wanted to travel, to see places that weren't just the neighborhood blocks I've walked 1,000 times. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe even starting a business someday. I had this idea that hard work would pay off, that if I kept pushing, the future would open up for me. But now, those dreams feel distant, like they belong to someone else's life. They're postponed indefinitely, put on hold because right now, survival takes all my energy. I tell myself it's temporary, but sometimes the doubt creeps in, whispering that maybe temporary is just a nicer word for forever. I try to keep a grip on my emotional well-being, but it's a daily battle. There's a knot of anxiety that tightens when I hear about yet another price hike or when a bill arrives with a balance I can't quite cover. Sleep doesn't always come easy. I lie awake thinking about what I might have to sacrifice next, the phone bill, the internet, groceries, or maybe even a shift at work if I feel too drained. It's exhausting to be constantly calculating risks and consequences just to get through the week. Coping isn't easy, but I've learned to be resourceful. I've cut back on everything that isn't absolutely necessary. No more nights out, no new clothes, no fancy coffee or eating out. I clip coupons, shop sales, and buy secondhand whenever I can. Sometimes I find small moments of relief in these tiny victories, like snagging a good deal on groceries or managing to squeeze a few extra bucks into savings, but they're fleeting. The pressure always comes back, bigger than before. There are days when I feel invisible in this system, like I'm trapped in a machine that just keeps spinning faster and faster while I run in place. The cost of living outpaces my income, and it feels like the gap is widening every day. It's not just a numbers game, it's a psychological toll that weighs heavily on my spirit. I'm doing everything right, or so I thought, working full-time, budgeting, making sacrifices, but the outcome rarely changes. What hurts the most is the sense of helplessness. I want to believe I have control over my future, but the economic environment feels like a tidal wave I'm constantly trying to swim against. Every headline about inflation, wage stagnation, or rising housing costs feels personal. It's not just abstract data, it's my reality. Sometimes I wonder how people around me manage, my friends who seem to be moving forward, buying homes or traveling, or even just living without the constant fear of being one emergency away from disaster. I don't think they don't struggle, but I feel like I'm fighting a battle on a different, harsher front. I'm trying to hold on to hope, though. Hope that one day I'll catch a break, that my work will lead somewhere better, that maybe the system will change, or I'll find a way around it. I remind myself that this pressure doesn't define me, even if it shapes my day-to-day life. I still have dreams, even if they're on hold, the dream of financial stability, of peace of mind, of a life where I don't have to constantly choose between essentials. For now, I take it one day at a time. I find small moments of joy wherever I can, a phone call with a friend, a quiet walk in the park, a favorite song on the radio. These moments remind me I'm still human, still capable of feeling hope, even when the world feels like it's pushing down hard. I want to believe in a future where money isn't a source of constant anxiety. I want to believe that my story isn't just about struggle but about resilience, about the strength it takes to keep going when everything seems stacked against you. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s. Not about money, at least. Growing up, I was told that if I worked hard, I'd be fine, a steady job, a little savings, maybe a place of my own someday. But reality? It's been something else entirely. Lately, every day feels like I'm stuck in quicksand. No matter how much I struggle to climb out, the weight of bills, rent, and everything else just pulls me deeper. The expenses keep rising, faster than I can keep up, and my income feels like a thin thread stretched too tight, ready to snap. I start my mornings with a pit in my stomach. There's a ritual now, checking my bank balance before I even get out of bed. It's never what I want it to be. Sometimes, it's downright scary. The number blinks back at me like a judgment, a constant reminder of how tight everything is. I have to make decisions right away. Do I pay this bill on time, or do I buy groceries? Can I afford the gas to get to work, or will I walk and hope the weather holds? These are not the choices I imagined making when I pictured my life as an adult. The cost of living has shot up so much, it feels like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving farther away. Rent alone takes more than half my paycheck. Utilities spike unexpectedly, groceries cost more than they used to, and little extras like a night out or a new pair of shoes are luxuries I can't remember the last time I indulged in. It's exhausting. And humiliating. I've had to borrow money from friends before, which fills me with shame even though they never treat me like I owe them anything. I want to be independent, to stand on my own 2 feet, but the system makes it so hard. I'm not just talking about the numbers, it's how this financial pressure eats away at my peace of mind. There's a heaviness, a constant underlying anxiety that creeps in every time I open my mail or see a notification pop up on my phone. I lie awake some nights, calculating, recalculating, worrying about what will come next. It's like a low hum of stress that I can't switch off, no matter how hard I try. Sometimes, I feel so drained that even the simplest tasks become mountains. Getting out of bed feels like a victory on some days. The worst part is feeling trapped. It's like being caught in a system designed to keep me barely afloat, always scrambling but never getting ahead. I work hard, 2 jobs some weeks, but it's not enough. There's this gnawing sense that no matter what I do, I'm just a cog in a machine that's moving too fast, powered by rising inflation, stagnant wages, and skyrocketing housing costs. The world is changing around me, but my paycheck stays almost the same. It's disheartening, to say the least. Sometimes, I daydream about what could have been. I wanted to travel after college, see places beyond my small town, experience life in a way that didn't feel boxed in by bills and obligations. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe getting a master's degree or learning a skill that could help me break out of this cycle. But those dreams have been put on hold indefinitely. When every cent counts, investing in myself feels like a selfish luxury. Instead, I'm learning to survive, to make the best of what little I have. Coping is a daily challenge. I try to find moments of joy where I can, sometimes in small, cheap pleasures like a walk in the park, a call with a friend, or binge watching a show I love. I've gotten better at budgeting, at meal prepping, at stretching every dollar. I even started using apps to track my spending, hoping that some structure might ease the chaos. But it's not just about being smart with money. It's about holding on to hope, even when everything feels bleak. There are days when I feel like giving up, when the weight of it all feels unbearable. But then I remind myself why I keep going. I want more than just to survive. I want to build a life where I can breathe freely, where financial pressure doesn't dictate every move I make. I want to believe that someday, I'll be able to look back and say, I made it through. Maybe the system is broken, but I refuse to let it break me. The truth is, I'm scared. Scared that if things don't change, I'll never catch up, never feel secure, never live without that gnawing anxiety in my chest. But I'm also stubborn, and I hold on to the belief that change is possible, that my story isn't over, that better days are ahead. For now, I keep putting one foot in front of the other, navigating the pressure, the uncertainty, and the fear, hoping that the future will be kinder than the present. This is my reality, messy and raw. But it's mine, and I'm telling it because I know I'm not alone. Maybe sharing this helps someone else feel seen, understood, or less alone in their own fight. We're all just trying to make it work, even when the system seems rigged against us. And maybe, if enough of us keep pushing, we'll find a way out, together. I remember the first time I truly felt the weight of financial pressure settle over me, not like a sudden blow, but more like a slow, persistent squeeze tightening around my chest. It was a few months after I graduated, when I was still navigating the choppy waters of entry-level jobs and renting a tiny apartment I could barely afford. At first, I thought it was temporary. Surely, I told myself, as soon as I land a real job, things would get better. But the truth is, things didn't get better. They just kept getting harder. The cost of everything seems to grow faster than I can keep up with. Rent goes up, groceries get more expensive, utilities, transportation, even my phone bill feels like a luxury these days. Every month, I watch my paycheck stretch thinner and thinner, until I'm left wondering how I'm supposed to cover all the basics. And then there's the unexpected, car repairs, a medical bill, or even just a gift for a friend's birthday, that sends me into a panic spiral. It feels like walking on a tightrope that's fraying at the edges. One misstep, and everything could unravel. I try to be smart about money, I track every cent, I make budgets that look good on paper, but reality has a way of sneaking in through the cracks. Sometimes I have to choose between filling up my gas tank or buying enough groceries for the week. Sometimes I skip a night out with friends, not because I don't want to be there, but because I can't afford the cost of a meal or the subway fare. I've said no to things I once dreamed about, travel, going back to school, even hobbies that used to bring me joy, because they just aren't feasible. The economic environment feels like this giant, invisible force that's constantly pressing down on me. Inflation, wage stagnation, job insecurity, it all compounds into this heavy cloud that follows me everywhere. The news talks about recovery and growth, but none of that feels real to me. It feels like a story that's happening to someone else, in a different world. I know the economy is complex, but from where I stand, it's simple: expenses rise, income doesn't, and I'm caught in the middle trying to make ends meet. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's a constant undercurrent of anxiety that I can't seem to shake off. Every bill, every paycheck, every purchase carries this hidden weight of fear of falling behind, of losing what little stability I have, of being trapped forever. It's hard to sleep sometimes, knowing that tomorrow might bring another unexpected expense that derails all my careful planning. And yet, there's also shame. I never thought I'd be someone who worries so much about money, who has to turn down social invitations, or who feels embarrassed to admit that I'm struggling. There's a stigma around financial hardship, like it's a sign of personal failure rather than a systemic issue. But I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to acknowledge that I'm doing the best I can under impossible circumstances. To cope, I found little ways to hold on to some sense of control. I journal about my money anxieties, which helps me organize my thoughts and see patterns I might otherwise miss. I've joined online communities where people share their stories and tips, reminding me I'm not alone. Sometimes, I let myself daydream about a better future, even if it feels distant or unlikely. I remind myself that this phase doesn't define me, even if it feels like it sometimes. Those dreams, oh, the dreams. I used to imagine a future where I had enough to save, to travel, to buy a home, to maybe even start a family. But those hopes feel like they've been put on hold indefinitely, waiting for a day that keeps moving further away. I think about starting graduate school, but the idea of more debt is terrifying. I think about changing jobs, but opportunities that pay well are scarce, and risks feel too high. It's a constant balancing act between what I want and what I can realistically afford. Some days, I feel trapped, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up while I'm barely moving forward. The system isn't designed to catch me if I fall, it's designed to keep me in place, or worse, push me backward. But then there are moments of quiet resilience, moments when I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank account, that I'm more than my financial struggles. I hold on to the hope that one day, the pressure will ease, that I'll find a way out, that I can reclaim those postponed dreams. For now, I'm here, trying, struggling, learning to navigate a world that feels tilted against me. I don't have all the answers, but I have my story, and I'm telling it because I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Maybe if we speak openly about it, if we hold space for each other's struggles, the weight might become a little lighter. And maybe, just maybe, the future will look a little brighter. Some days, I feel like I'm drowning in a current I can't fight, one where every breath I take just pulls me deeper into a sea of bills, rents, and prices that don't stop climbing. I'm 26 now, and honestly, I didn't expect life to feel like this, like I'm running on a treadmill set way too fast, but instead of exhaustion, it's this deep, gnawing frustration that keeps me awake at night. I remember finishing college with this bright-eyed hope, like the world was my oyster. I thought if I worked hard, paid off my student loans, and saved a little, I'd eventually carve out a life that felt stable. But what I didn't see coming was how the cost of living would race ahead, and how my paycheck would barely keep up, slipping through my fingers faster than I can catch it. Every morning, I wake up and calculate, sometimes mentally, sometimes with apps, that budget I keep tweaking but never quite balancing. Rent has shot up again this year, and though I moved to a smaller place across town, the monthly check to the landlord still takes a massive chunk out of what I bring home. Utilities spike in the summer and winter, and I find myself debating whether to turn on the AC or just endure the heat, hoping it won't affect my health. Groceries? A simple trip to the store is a strategic mission now. I buy the basics, avoiding anything with a fancy label or too many ingredients because I can't justify the extra few dollars for something extra. Coffee from a shop is a luxury I've almost completely cut out, even though I used to love it. It feels like a little daily joy I had to sacrifice. The strangest part is how invisible this pressure feels to others. Friends post pictures of weekend getaways or new gadgets, and while I'm genuinely happy for them, it also stings. I scroll through their stories with this ache, knowing I can't even dream of that right now. A trip abroad, a new phone, or even just eating out without stressing about the cost feels like something from another universe. Sometimes I feel guilty for wanting these things, like I'm being selfish or frivolous, even though deep down, I know it's just normal to want to enjoy life. Work is steady, but the raise I got last year barely covered the increase in my rent and groceries. It's like a slow-moving trap, where expenses keep growing faster than income, and the gap feels impossible to close. I've tried side gigs, selling old stuff online, even freelancing, but those efforts burn me out. When I come home after a long day, my body aches, and my mind is fried. I want to rest, not hustle more. Financial stress isn't just about numbers, it creeps into my thoughts, colors my moods, and sometimes feels like a shadow I carry everywhere. There are nights when I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining what it would be like if the pressure just lifted for a moment. I feel anxious about emergencies. What if my car breaks down or I get sick? How would I cover that? This uncertainty gnaws at me. It makes it hard to plan, hard to dream. Speaking of dreams, there are so many I've had to put on hold. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city, to meet new people, to feel that spark of adventure. I dreamed of owning a home one day, maybe even starting a small business. But those goals now feel like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. I tell myself I'm being practical, that I'm laying the groundwork for better days. But some days, it just feels like survival is all there is. Coping is a constant process. I try to find small pockets of peace, a walk in the park, a book borrowed from the library, a phone call with a close friend. These moments remind me that I'm more than my financial situation. I've learned to be kinder to myself, to recognize that this struggle doesn't define my worth. Therapy helps too, just having a space to unpack these feelings without judgment. Still, there's this stubborn hope that keeps me going. Maybe it's naive, but I believe in a future where things get better. Where I'll have enough not just to get by but to live with a little breathing room. I remind myself that this is a phase, a tough one, but not the whole story. I want to believe that one day, I'll look back and see how far I've come, that these hardships shaped me but didn't break me. For now, I take it day by day. I keep adjusting my budget, searching for better opportunities, and clinging to hope. Because even in the hardest moments, that flicker inside me refuses to go out. I'm trapped, yes, but not defeated, yet. I remember when I first stepped out on my own, fresh out of college, full of hope and a sense of freedom that felt almost intoxicating. The world was wide open, and I believed, naively, perhaps, that if I worked hard and stayed steady, things would fall into place. But reality hit fast, and now, several years later, that hopeful young adult feels like a distant memory buried beneath the weight of ongoing financial pressure that seems to tighten its grip every single day. It's hard to put into words exactly what it feels like to be caught in this cycle. Every month feels like a race against time and numbers that always seem to stretch just beyond reach. My income grows, but only in tiny, almost negligible increments, while everything else, rent, groceries, bills, transportation, jumps higher and higher, as if they're on some cruel escalator moving only upwards. I find myself trapped in a system where expenses don't just rise, they outpace any attempt I make to keep up, leaving me constantly scrambling to cover essentials, let alone save or plan for anything beyond the immediate. Some days, the pressure sits on my chest so heavy that I can barely breathe. I wake up in the morning, heart pounding, already worrying about how I'll stretch the paycheck until the end of the month. There's a constant background noise of anxiety, like a low hum that never quite turns off. Simple things, like choosing what to eat, or whether to buy a new pair of shoes, become fraught decisions. Do I spend extra on healthier food, or stick to cheaper options that leave me less nourished but keep the budget intact? Do I pay a little more to fix my aging laptop, or tough it out until it completely breaks? Even the act of seeing a doctor feels like a luxury I can't afford. This kind of pressure wears on you mentally and emotionally. Some days, I feel like I'm failing myself. I postponed dreams, big dreams I had when I was younger, like traveling, or going back to school for something I'm passionate about, or even just moving to a nicer neighborhood where I wouldn't feel unsafe walking home at night. Those dreams now feel like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. Sometimes, I catch myself imagining what life would have been if I'd taken a different path, or if I'd been born into a family with more financial security. The what-ifs sting sharply. But the reality is, I'm here. And here means this ongoing struggle to make ends meet. I try to find small ways to cope. I've learned to budget meticulously, tracking every cent with apps and spreadsheets, trying to squeeze some breathing room out of an unforgiving financial landscape. I cut corners wherever I can, buying second-hand clothes, cooking all my meals at home, canceling subscriptions that feel more like indulgences than necessities. I lean on friends for emotional support, even if I can't join them for dinners or nights out because my wallet says no. Occasionally, I treat myself to little moments of joy, a coffee from my favorite local cafe, a walk in the park on a sunny afternoon, a phone call with someone who understands the grind. These small escapes remind me that life isn't just about survival, even if survival feels like a full-time job. They help me hold on to a sliver of hope that one day, things might change. What keeps me going is the belief, however fragile, that the future can be better. I still dream of stability, of a place to call my own, of waking up without the heavy cloud of financial stress. I want to build something lasting, maybe start a family someday, but those hopes feel like distant projects I need to save for years to come. For now, I cling to the idea that my hard work and perseverance might eventually break this cycle, even if it feels like I'm running uphill in thick mud. The hardest part is feeling invisible within this system. When everything feels so fragile, it's easy to feel like no one really sees the struggle, the mental exhaustion, the constant juggling act, the quiet desperation behind the daily smile. I want to shout that this isn't just about numbers on a paycheck or bills on a table, it's about people trying to live, to dream, to find joy in a world that often seems set up to keep us down. So I keep going, day by day. I breathe in, breathe out. I remind myself that even small steps forward count. I may be trapped now, but I hold on to the hope that one day, I'll break free, not just for the sake of financial security, but for the chance to live fully, without the constant shadow of worry hanging over every decision. And maybe, just maybe, that future isn't as far off as it feels. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly drowning, with no solid ground in sight. But here I am, in my mid-20s, and every day feels like a tightrope walk over an endless pit of bills, expenses, and looming debts. The economic world around me seems to be spinning faster than I can keep up with, and the harder I run, the more the finish line drifts away. Growing up, I had dreams. Nothing too extravagant, but enough to fuel my ambition, owning a little apartment in the city, traveling once in a while, maybe starting a small side business someday. I imagined building a life where I could breathe easy, save up for emergencies, and occasionally treat myself without guilt. But that's not how reality turned out. The truth is, it's like I'm trapped in this system where my expenses grow faster than my income, and I'm stuck trying to plug holes in a sinking boat. Every paycheck I get seems to evaporate before I even finish my grocery shopping. Rent alone gobbles up almost half of what I make, and utilities, transportation, insurance, those aren't small numbers either. Then there's the unexpected stuff, a broken phone screen, a medical copay, the car needing urgent repairs. These things don't wait until I have money saved, they come crashing in, adding pressure on top of pressure. I work a steady job, 40 hours a week, but the pay barely stretches far enough. I've taken on extra shifts when I can, picked up freelance gigs late into the night, and trimmed every possible expense. I've learned to eat cheaper meals, cut back on outings with friends, and avoid anything that feels like an unnecessary indulgence. But no matter what I do, the cost of living keeps climbing, rent hikes are inevitable, and inflation makes every dollar feel lighter. Some days, I'm so exhausted just trying to keep up that I feel invisible. Like the system was designed to wear me down, to keep me spinning my wheels without moving forward. I watch news reports about people buying homes, investing, or comfortably planning for retirement, and it feels like those opportunities belong to someone else's life, someone born into a different economic climate or with a safety net I'll never have. There's a quiet frustration in that realization, a sting of unfairness that I try not to let define me, but it lingers. Emotionally, it's heavy. I carry this knot of anxiety that tightens when I open my bank app or see a new bill arrive. The constant worry seeps into my sleep, making it hard to rest or feel fully present. I'm caught in a cycle where stress feeds exhaustion, and exhaustion dulls my motivation. It's hard not to feel like I'm failing, even though I know I'm doing everything I can. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being irrational or weak for feeling overwhelmed, but then I remind myself that this is real. This is what happens when survival costs more than what you can give. Coping isn't straightforward. I lean on small things, texting friends for a laugh, walking in the park to clear my mind, jotting down goals even if they seem far off. I've started meditating, trying to focus on what I can control instead of the whole system. Sometimes I treat myself to a cheap coffee or a movie at home, tiny comforts that remind me I'm still human, not just a paycheck-to-paycheck statistic. But even as I cope, there's a part of me that grieves. I've had to postpone dreams that once felt like milestones. That trip abroad I planned to take with a friend? On hold indefinitely. The course I wanted to enroll in to build new skills? Waiting for a time when I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. Even things like upgrading my laptop or buying clothes feel like luxuries rather than necessities. I want to believe that this isn't forever. That someday I'll find a breakthrough, a better job, a chance to save, a way out of this endless loop. I hold on to that hope tightly because without it, the daily grind would be unbearable. But hope alone isn't a plan, and the wait is long. Sometimes, I imagine a future where I can breathe easier, where money doesn't dictate every decision. Where I can wake up and choose joy instead of rationing it. It feels like a fragile dream, but it's the one thing that keeps me pushing forward. For now, I'm learning to be gentle with myself, to acknowledge the struggle without letting it define my worth. I'm finding strength in small victories, paying off a credit card balance, resisting the urge to buy something unnecessary, or simply making it through a tough week. These moments matter, even if the system doesn't always reward them. This story isn't unique, I know. I see it in the eyes of many people around me, in the conversations we don't always have aloud. Financial pressure isn't just about numbers, it's about feeling stuck, anxious, and uncertain in a world that's supposed to be full of possibility. And it's okay to admit that it's hard, that it's scary, and that sometimes I'm scared I won't find a way out. But I'm still here. I'm still trying. And maybe, someday, that will be enough to turn this story into something better. I wake up every morning with this tight knot in my chest, that invisible weight that's been building for years, pressing down harder with every sunrise. It's not just the usual stress, it's the slow, grinding pressure of living in a world where everything costs more than I can reasonably earn. I'm 27, but sometimes I feel trapped in a cycle that doesn't have an exit sign, where the numbers just never add up. When I graduated college, I had dreams like anyone else. I imagined a life where I could pay my bills without second-guessing every purchase, maybe save a little, take a trip here and there, build something stable. But the economy had other plans. Rent climbed faster than I got raises, groceries seemed to go up every time I set foot in the store, and the cost of basic necessities became a daily reminder that my paycheck was just chasing a moving target. I remember the first time I really felt the sting of it, after moving to a new city for a better job opportunity. I was excited, hopeful even. But then came the rent, almost half of my monthly income, not including utilities. My apartment was tiny and noisy, not the cozy sanctuary I'd hoped for, but it was all I could afford. I worked 40 hours a week, sometimes more, but at the end of the month, I'd still find myself staring at a nearly empty bank account, wondering where all my money had gone. Bills don't wait. They pile up, relentless and indifferent. Electricity, internet, phone, transportation, food, and every time I turned around, something new popped up, a doctor's visit, a car repair, an unexpected expense that threw my budget off balance. I tried to be careful, tracking every cent, skipping meals, buying second-hand clothes, and cutting out non-essential things, but the list of essentials kept growing longer. It felt like running on a treadmill that was speeding up, no matter how fast I pushed. Sometimes I feel ashamed to admit how much it affects me. I compare myself to friends who seem to have it all figured out, a nice apartment, a car, occasional nights out. I tell myself it's just the way the world is now, but deep down, I'm scared. Scared that no matter what I do, I'll never break free from this cycle. The idea of saving for a down payment on a house? It feels like a joke. Retirement? A distant, blurry concept that I can't even imagine reaching. My emotional well-being has taken a hit, too. I've had restless nights, waking up with anxiety that feels like a physical force crushing my chest. The constant worry wears on me. It's hard to find joy in things when you're always counting pennies, always fearing what's around the corner. I've caught myself withdrawing from social plans because going out means spending money I don't have. It's isolating, and that loneliness adds another layer to the stress. Coping with this pressure isn't easy. I try to remind myself of what I do have, a job that pays the bills, mostly, friends who understand when I say no to dinner out, a small apartment that I can call mine. I take walks in the park to clear my head, write in a journal to make sense of the chaos, and sometimes, I allow myself to dream. Those dreams are fragile now, a vacation to a place I've never seen, a career change that feels risky but exciting, even just a day without financial worries. But the dreams also bring pain because I know they're on hold. I've had to postpone grad school because tuition isn't something I can add to my list of expenses right now. I've delayed buying a reliable car, even though my old one is barely hanging on. And I pushed aside starting a family, a hope I once held dear, because how can I provide for more mouths when I'm barely making it for myself? I've started to understand that this isn't just about personal choices, it's about a system that often feels rigged against people like me. It's frustrating and exhausting to work hard every day, to be responsible and careful, and still feel like you're barely treading water. Sometimes I wonder how people manage it all, balancing work, life, debt, and hope. Maybe some have figured it out. maybe some haven't. Despite all this, I hold on to a quiet hope. Not a big, flashy hope, but the kind that whispers in the background, reminding me that this isn't the whole story of my life. That even if the system feels unkind and the future uncertain, I still have the power to shape my path, to find moments of peace and joy in small things, and to keep pushing forward, even when the weight feels unbearable. So I keep going. I keep waking up, facing the day, making the hard decisions, and hoping that someday soon, the numbers will finally start to work in my favor. Until then, this is my story, one of quiet resilience, raw honesty, and a stubborn belief that I'm more than my paycheck, more than my bills, and more than the economic pressure trying to define me. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, stuck, exhausted, like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up no matter how fast I move. I've always been taught that if you work hard enough, you can get ahead. But now? It feels like the world's moved the finish line so far ahead that no matter how many hours I put in, I'm just not catching up. And that's been wearing me down. Every morning starts with a kind of quiet dread. Not the heavy, screaming kind, but a dull ache in the pit of my stomach that stays with me until I finally fall asleep at night. It's the anxiety of knowing that the rent's due in 5 days, my paycheck will barely cover it after the usual bills, and I still have to eat, commute, and maybe, just maybe, save something for the future. But I never do save. How could I, when every month feels like a balancing act on a knife's edge? The economic environment hasn't been kind. Inflation has turned groceries into luxury items, gas prices spike like a roller coaster, and rent keeps climbing faster than I can even track. The wage increases promised don't keep pace with the rising costs, so my income is like a balloon losing air slowly but surely. It's deflating, and there's nothing I can do but watch it shrink. Sometimes, I break down the numbers in my head: rent, utilities, phone, insurance, groceries, transportation, some minimal entertainment or social time, because if I don't maintain a semblance of a normal life, the pressure will crush me. Then there's the unexpected stuff: a doctor's visit, a busted phone screen, or a last-minute trip for a family emergency. All of these pile on, and suddenly the delicate balance shatters. I feel like I'm always one crisis away from chaos. Shopping trips used to be something I enjoyed, browsing, maybe picking up a new shirt or something fun for the apartment. Now, I go with a strict list and a strict budget, and I leave with only the bare necessities. Sometimes I wonder how many people are in the same boat, silently navigating the same storm. It's isolating. You don't want to tell your friends that you can't join them for dinner or drinks again because you just don't have the money. You don't want to admit you've been skipping meals or stretching out your shampoo because you're trying to make things last longer. Emotionally, it's like carrying a weight on your chest every day. There's shame that creeps in when I can't contribute equally or have to say no, guilt when I buy something small and then regret it immediately, frustration that all my hard work doesn't seem to translate into anything more than just getting by. I feel trapped in a system that's designed to keep people like me just barely afloat. The bills grow, the prices rise, and the paycheck doesn't. It's a cruel loop. I've learned to cope in small ways, budgeting obsessively, cooking at home even when I don't feel like it, avoiding unnecessary trips, and trying to find free or low-cost entertainment. Sometimes, I'll spend hours scrolling through forums where people share tips for living cheaply, which is strangely comforting. But these small victories feel like band-aids over a deep wound. The thing that hurts the most is how this pressure shapes my dreams. I used to think I'd travel after college, maybe take a year off to explore somewhere new. I imagined moving to a bigger city, buying a car, maybe even owning a small apartment someday. Now, those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful but impossibly far away. I postponed plans to go back to school for a master's degree because I can't justify the expense or the lost income. I've shelved thoughts of starting a side business or a creative project because I don't have the bandwidth or resources. What keeps me going? Hope, I guess. Hope that things might get better someday. That the economy will stabilize, that wages will catch up, that maybe, just maybe, I'll find a job that pays what I'm worth. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to have a little breathing room, to not have to count every penny, to say yes to spontaneous plans, to sleep without worrying about money. But hope is fragile. The constant financial pressure wears it thin, making it hard to believe in a better future without feeling like I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Still, I remind myself that this isn't the whole story. I am more than my bank balance or my paycheck. I try to hold on to the small joys, a good conversation, a moment of laughter, a sunset after a long day. They don't pay the bills, but they remind me there's still life beyond the struggle. So I keep going, day by day. Sometimes I falter, sometimes I cry, sometimes I just sit quietly and feel the weight of it all. But I try to remember that this isn't forever. That even though the system feels rigged and the climb feels endless, I am here, I am trying, and that's something. Maybe one day, I'll look back and see this as the time that taught me how strong I really am. Until then, I hold on to the small lights, the moments of hope, the dreams I haven't given up on, and the belief that life is more than just surviving. It's about living, even in the hardest times. And that's where I am now, still climbing, still hoping, still dreaming, even if it's just a little bit at a time. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of trap, one that's invisible but suffocates just the same. It's not like I'm unemployed or reckless with money, far from it. I work 2 jobs, save every penny I can, and still, somehow, the bills pile up like an insurmountable mountain. Every month, I feel like I'm trying to climb out of a pit, but the ground beneath me keeps slipping away. The cost of living seems to rise faster than my paycheck ever can, and no matter how hard I try, I'm stuck on this relentless treadmill. I'm 27 now, and I remember back when I graduated college, full of hope and plans. I thought that once I had a degree and a job, I'd be able to start building something, maybe a little savings, a place of my own, even a small vacation now and then. But that optimism faded fast. Rents in the city have shot through the roof, even a tiny studio costs more than half of my income. Utilities, groceries, transportation, everything feels like it's constantly creeping higher, and the hours I work just don't stretch far enough to cover it all without sacrifice. Some days, I wake up already exhausted, thinking about how tight things are. I have to choose between buying fresh vegetables or grabbing a few cans of cheaper, less nutritious food. Sometimes I skip meals to save money, convincing myself it's temporary. But those moments chip away at my energy and mood, leaving me irritable and anxious. I hate admitting it, but there's a creeping hopelessness that settles in when I look at my bank balance after paying rent and bills. The numbers rarely add up to a future I can believe in. My emotional well-being has taken a hit. The constant stress gnaws at me. Sometimes it's hard to sleep because I'm worrying about how I'll make next month's rent, or if I should even go to the doctor when I feel sick. I've stopped seeing friends as much, not because I don't want to, but because socializing costs money I don't have. Coffee dates, nights out, even just catching a movie, all of it feels out of reach. Isolation creeps in, and that loneliness compounds the weight on my chest. And yet, I try to find ways to cope. I've started journaling again, pouring out my frustrations on paper so I don't bottle them up. Sometimes I walk to clear my head, reminding myself that fresh air is free. I've learned to celebrate the small wins, making it through a tough week, finding a good deal at the grocery store, or even just catching up on a few hours of sleep. But these aren't solutions, they're patches on a wound that won't heal while the system keeps squeezing me. The worst part is feeling like I'm caught in a system designed to keep people like me barely afloat. The minimum wage hasn't kept pace with inflation. Housing costs spiral out of control while wages stagnate. Student loans loom over me like a dark cloud, and any attempt to get ahead feels like swimming against a strong current that only pulls me back. I'm tired of the constant hustle, the endless budgeting, the way financial pressure seeps into every corner of my life. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Buying a home, which seemed so tangible not long ago, now feels like a fantasy. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this city, to experience different cultures and break free from the daily grind. But those dreams seem frivolous when rent is overdue, when the car needs repairs I can't afford, when unexpected expenses pop up like landmines. I've put off graduate school, professional certifications, even switching careers to something I might love more, all because the financial risk is too great. Sometimes I wonder what life would be like if the economic environment were different. If wages grew alongside living costs, if affordable housing existed, if healthcare didn't mean choosing between medicine and rent. I imagine waking up without that pit in my stomach, feeling excited about the future instead of dread. I wonder if I'll ever get there, or if this will be my reality for years to come. But I hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile. I remind myself that this isn't my fault, that I'm doing everything I can, and that change, while slow, is possible. I dream of a day when I can breathe easier, when I can plan for more than just surviving. I want to build a life where money doesn't dictate my happiness or limit my choices. Until then, I'll keep pushing forward, even when it's hard, even when it feels unfair. Because giving up isn't an option. This is my truth, the ongoing financial pressure isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about how it shapes my days, my thoughts, and my future. It's the weight I carry silently, the invisible chain tightening a little more each day. But it's also a story of resilience, of quiet strength in the face of an unforgiving system. And maybe, just maybe, sharing this will remind someone else that they're not alone. I never thought money would feel like a chain wrapped tightly around my ankles, pulling me down every single day. But here I am, in my late 20s, juggling bills, rent, groceries, and all the little expenses that seem to grow bigger no matter how hard I try to keep up. It's like the world's economic engine is roaring forward, but I'm stuck in place, watching my paycheck stretch thinner and thinner. I remember when I first moved out on my own, full of hope and energy. I was ready to build my life, get a decent job, maybe finish some schooling, travel a bit, and just live. But reality hit fast and hard. Rent in my city keeps climbing, and utilities, groceries, and transportation all demand their slice. Each month, I carve out a budget, cutting corners wherever I can, no more eating out, no spontaneous purchases, skipping social events to save on travel or drinks. And still, I find myself scrambling to cover the basics by the end of the month. It's exhausting. Some mornings, I wake up with a pit in my stomach, worrying about whether the next paycheck will be enough to cover everything. I scroll through my banking app, double-checking transactions, calculating how many days I can make my food last or if I need to dip into savings I was supposed to keep for emergencies. I try to remind myself that I'm doing the best I can, but the anxiety gnaws at me constantly. The pressure is like a low, relentless hum beneath everything else I'm trying to focus on. This feeling of being trapped is what hurts the most. It's like I'm running on a treadmill set at a speed I can't control. My income barely inches forward, but expenses sprint ahead. It's not just rent or bills, it's everything, from the price of a bus ticket to the cost of healthcare, even the little things like a haircut or a coffee with a friend. I know I'm not alone in this, many of my friends feel it too, but that doesn't make it easier. Sometimes I envy those who don't have to think twice about these everyday costs, who can plan for a future rather than just survive the present. The emotional toll is heavy. I find myself withdrawing from people, saying no to invitations because I can't afford the expense or I'm too tired after working long hours. There's guilt in that, guilt for missing out, for not being the friend or partner I want to be. And there's shame too, though I try to keep it buried. I tell myself it's temporary, that I'm just in a rough patch. But the rough patch has stretched on for years now, and hope feels fragile. To cope, I've developed little rituals and mental tricks. I make detailed lists to keep track of what's owed and what's coming in. I celebrate small wins, like getting a slightly better shift at work or finding a sale on groceries. Sometimes, I let myself dream quietly at night, about a stable job, a home I can call my own, a chance to breathe without financial fear. Those dreams keep me going, even though I've had to postpone many of them indefinitely. I used to imagine traveling, exploring new places, learning new skills without the weight of money dragging me down. Now, those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful but out of reach. Even saving feels impossible when every dollar is claimed by necessity. I think about starting a family someday or going back to school, but those plans feel like luxuries I can't afford. The system is unforgiving, and I'm stuck inside it, trying to find cracks where I can slip through. Yet, despite everything, there's a stubborn part of me that refuses to give up. I talk to friends who understand, even if they can't fix the system. I remind myself that this isn't a personal failure, but a reality shaped by larger forces, an economy that values profit over people, where wages don't keep pace with the cost of living. I hold on to hope that change can come, that someday I'll breathe easier. Until then, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, trying to find moments of peace in the chaos. The struggle is real and ongoing, but it's also shaping who I am, resilient, aware, and determined to carve out a life beyond the numbers that try to define me. Some mornings, I wake up and the first thing I feel isn't the light spilling through the blinds or the soft hum of the city outside, but a tightness in my chest, a weight that presses down like an invisible hand. It's the same feeling that's been creeping in for years now, ever since I started to notice that no matter how hard I worked, how carefully I counted every dollar, the bills kept piling up, the prices kept climbing, and my paycheck just didn't. I'm 27 now. I graduated college with a decent degree and a head full of hope. I imagined my 20s would be about exploration, maybe a little adventure, learning new things, making mistakes, but not about worrying whether I could afford to eat lunch or pay for my phone this month. I thought hard work would mean progress, but instead, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. The rent alone is a crushing burden. I live in a small, cramped studio that's barely enough for me, and it takes nearly half my income. Sometimes I catch myself daydreaming about what it'd be like to have space, maybe a couch to invite a friend over without apologizing for the mess, or even just a kitchen that fits more than a hot plate and a mini fridge. But those are just dreams now. Places like that are priced out of reach, and every time I see a for rent sign, I wonder how people even manage. Food is another constant stress. I keep a mental spreadsheet of prices, memorizing sales and discount days, carefully planning meals to stretch a single bag of rice and some canned beans into 3 or 4 dinners. Eating out is a luxury I rarely allow myself anymore. The few times I do, I'm hit with guilt afterward. That's money I could have saved or used for something else more necessary. Yet the monotony of the same meals, the constant calculations, make life feel more like surviving than living. Transportation is its own nightmare. I don't own a car because I can't afford the payments, insurance, and gas all at once. Public transit is cheaper but often unreliable, which makes getting to work or interviews a gamble. I've lost out on opportunities just because I couldn't get there on time, and the frustration eats at me. The hours I spend waiting at the bus stop feel like time stolen from everything else, time I could spend building skills, resting, or just decompressing. The economic environment around me feels like a storm I'm endlessly trying to weather. Inflation eats away at every dollar, making necessities more expensive every month. Rent, groceries, utilities, they all climb higher, but my wages have stayed stubbornly flat, maybe nudging up just a few cents here and there. It's like being trapped in a game where the rules keep changing, and no matter what I do, I'm always losing ground. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's a constant undercurrent of anxiety that I'm never fully aware of until it hits me all at once. Some nights, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, the silence filled with questions. How will I pay next month's rent? What if my car breaks down? What if I lose my job? What if I can't afford to see a doctor when I really need to? The pressure is relentless and, sometimes, it feels suffocating. I try to keep a brave face, but inside, the strain is real. I catch myself comparing my life to others on social media, their travels, new gadgets, nights out with friends, and it's hard not to feel left behind or like I'm missing out on something fundamental. I want to believe that my situation is temporary, that if I just keep pushing, keep working, I'll break free. But the system feels rigged. The gap between expenses and income feels like an ever-widening chasm I can't bridge. Coping isn't easy. Some days I try to distract myself with hobbies or friends, even though it costs energy I sometimes don't have. Other days, I retreat into silence, trying to conserve what little emotional bandwidth remains. I've learned to say no to invitations, to hide my struggles from family so they won't worry, to find small moments of joy in tiny victories, like finally fixing a leaky faucet myself or getting a paycheck a day early. But these moments are fleeting. The dreams I had for my future feel further away with every passing year. I once imagined traveling, buying a home, starting a family, maybe even switching careers to something I loved, rather than something I could just survive doing. Now, those dreams feel like luxuries I can't afford to entertain. Instead, I focus on paying off debt, keeping my job, and avoiding any unexpected expenses that could topple everything. Despite all this, I still cling to hope. Maybe it's naive, but I believe there's something better waiting, even if I can't see it yet. I hold on to the idea that someday, I'll find financial stability, that the sacrifices I make now will pay off later. Maybe I'll build a safety net, finally get to rest without worry, and pursue the life I imagined in college. For now, though, I'm caught in this cycle, balancing budgets, making hard choices, and trying to keep my mental health afloat. It's a daily struggle, and sometimes it feels like I'm shouting into a void. But telling this story feels important, like a way to remind myself that I'm not alone. Maybe someone else is feeling the same weight, and maybe, just maybe, together we can find a way forward. Because in this system where expenses grow faster than income, where the future feels uncertain and the present overwhelming, the most radical act is simply to keep going. And so I keep going. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, one that doesn't come from physical labor but from the constant mental strain of watching your money shrink before your eyes while the bills keep piling up. Every morning, I wake up with that familiar knot in my stomach, the nagging anxiety that today, like every day, will be about finding ways to stretch what little I have and somehow avoid falling further behind. I'm 27, working full-time, living paycheck to paycheck, and yet it feels like no matter what I do, I'm trapped in this tightening grip of financial pressure. The economic landscape around me isn't helping. Rent in my city has soared over the past few years, far faster than my wages have increased. I remember when I first moved out on my own, my tiny studio apartment felt manageable. Back then, $1,200 a month seemed steep but doable. Now, it's $1,600, and my hourly wage has barely budged. Utilities, groceries, transportation, all the basics have climbed too. Even the small indulgences I used to enjoy, like a coffee or a night out with friends, have become luxuries I can rarely afford. Inflation feels like a monster eating away at my paycheck before it even reaches my bank account. Each day, my decisions revolve around this invisible balancing act. Should I buy the generic brand cereal this week to save a few dollars, or can I risk the slightly pricier one that lasts longer? Do I take public transit or risk spending more on an Uber if I'm late? Am I really going to cook again tonight when I'm bone tired and could order food for less than the time and effort it would take to shop and prepare? These questions might seem small, but they consume me because the margin for error is non-existent. Sometimes, I catch myself scrolling through social media, seeing friends share their weekend trips or new gadgets, and I feel this pang of isolation. It's not envy exactly, but a raw awareness of how different our realities are. I want to tell them I'm proud of how they're thriving, but inside, I'm wrestling with feelings of failure, like I'm falling behind in life itself. The pressure isn't just financial, it's emotional. The system seems rigged to reward those who already have resources while leaving people like me to scramble for scraps. I've had to postpone dreams I once held so dear. I used to want to travel, really travel, explore new countries, immerse myself in different cultures, and learn from the world outside my city. Now, I count any extra money I can put into a savings jar as a victory, and a vacation is a distant fantasy. I've delayed going back to school, even though further education could open doors to better jobs, simply because the cost and the lost income feel too risky. Even small aspirations, like buying a car or moving to a safer neighborhood, seem like unreachable goals. Despite it all, I'm learning how to cope, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of hope. I've started meal prepping to save on food costs, which has helped a little. I've found communities online where people share budgeting tips, and it's comforting to know I'm not alone in this struggle. Still, there are days when the weight feels unbearable, when the constant worry eats away at my sleep and leaves me feeling hopeless. But I hold on to some small sparks of hope. I remind myself that this isn't permanent, that economic cycles change, and maybe, just maybe, there will be a break in the storm. I try to dream quietly, of financial stability, of peace of mind, of waking up one day without that familiar knot in my stomach. It's a slow burn, and some days it feels like I'm merely surviving rather than living, but I cling to the belief that there's more ahead. Living in this system, where expenses relentlessly outpace income, is exhausting. It's a constant struggle that shapes every part of my life, my choices, my emotions, my future. But in sharing this, I hope someone else understands they're not alone. Maybe, together, we can find ways to break free, or at least make the burden a little lighter. Because beneath the weight of it all, I'm still here, still dreaming, still hoping. Sometimes it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's getting faster, but the floor beneath me is crumbling at the same time. Every month, my paycheck arrives like clockwork, steady, predictable, but it never stretches far enough anymore. The rent, the bills, groceries, the gas for my car, the little unexpected things that always pop up, none of it waits for me to catch my breath. I'm 26 now, and I can honestly say I feel trapped in a system that's designed to squeeze every ounce of my energy, my time, and my hope out of me. When I graduated college, I had dreams. Big ones. I wanted to travel, maybe write a book someday, buy a small apartment where I could paint and decorate just the way I liked it. I imagined weekends spent with friends, exploring new parts of the city or taking spontaneous road trips. But then reality hit, hard and fast. The economy shifted, prices rose, wages stayed flat, and suddenly those dreams felt more like distant fantasies than attainable goals. My job pays the bills, but it doesn't give me breathing room. I work in retail, a lot of physical labor for minimum wage that's barely enough to cover rent and food. I remember the first time I sat down with a calculator, trying to budget properly. Every time I thought I'd found some wiggle room, something unexpected would come up, a car repair, a medical bill, a friend asking for help. I began to dread those little emergencies because they meant cutting into the already tiny margin I had. I've learned to be hyper-aware of every dollar I spend. Grocery shopping is a calculated mission now. I buy store brands, avoid anything fresh unless it's on sale, and cook the same meals over and over because they're cheap and filling. Eating out? Forget it. A cup of coffee from a cafe is a luxury, not a daily routine. I used to enjoy going to the movies, but now I wait for free screenings or borrow DVDs from the library. The things I used to take for granted have become sacrifices. Social life? That's been a slow casualty too. Invitations to dinners or events come with a twinge of anxiety. Can I afford it? Will I have to explain why I can't chip in for gas or drinks? I try to stay connected, but sometimes I just can't. It's isolating, like I'm watching everyone else live while I'm stuck on the sidelines, counting cents. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's a constant low-grade stress that never really leaves. The kind of stress that messes with your sleep and makes it hard to focus. I've felt shame too, like somehow this is my fault, that if I just worked harder or made better choices, I'd be okay. But the truth is, I'm doing everything I can. I hustle second jobs, I apply for assistance programs, I seek out cheaper housing options, but it never feels like enough. What's hardest is the feeling of being invisible to the system that's supposed to support us. The news talks about economic recovery, rising markets, and opportunity, but for me, that recovery is a ghost. I'm stuck watching the cost of living climb higher and higher while my income stays stubbornly low. It's a slow squeeze, and every month it feels a little tighter. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to break free. To wake up one day without the weight of money anxiety pressing down on me. To feel like I have options, choices that aren't dictated by the price tag. I dream of owning my own home, not just renting a cramped apartment in a noisy neighborhood. I dream of taking that trip to Europe I promised myself after graduation, seeing new places and experiencing freedom. But those dreams have been shelved, patiently waiting for a time that feels increasingly out of reach. I cope by focusing on small victories. That time I managed to save $20 by switching utility providers. The extra shift I picked up even though I was exhausted. The rare moments of laughter with friends, even if it's just at someone's apartment watching a movie on a borrowed laptop. I hold on to hope, because without it, what's the point? If I'm honest, some days the pressure feels like too much. The system is relentless, and sometimes I feel like I'm just a tiny cog stuck in a machine that grinds me down. But I keep going, because I have to. Because giving up isn't really an option. I remind myself that this moment is just one chapter, and maybe, just maybe, things will get better. For now, I take it day by day, paycheck by paycheck, holding on to those postponed dreams like lifelines. They're fragile, but they're mine. And someday, I hope to turn them into my reality. It's hard to put into words exactly what living under constant financial pressure feels like. Every day, I wake up with a tight knot in my chest, a mix of anxiety and exhaustion that never seems to fully loosen. I'm 27 now, working 2 jobs, but somehow it still feels like I'm sinking deeper instead of climbing out. The cost of rent, groceries, bills, they keep rising, faster than any raise I can hope for. And while the numbers add up on paper, the emotional toll isn't something I can easily calculate or explain. I remember the early days, right after college, when I thought I had a clear path ahead. I had plans, big ones. A small apartment in the city, maybe a trip abroad, a chance to save up for a car. I dreamed of weekends spent exploring new neighborhoods, coffee shops buzzing with life, nights out with friends. But those dreams slowly started to blur as reality hit. The rent on that small apartment was already more than I'd imagined. Utilities, internet, phone, all those fixed costs seemed to gobble up half my paycheck before I even bought groceries. I started picking up extra shifts, cutting back on little things, but it was never enough. Living paycheck to paycheck is a trap, though. It's like running on a treadmill set to a speed that keeps increasing just a little faster than you can keep up. When the gas prices rise or the grocery bill is higher than last week, I feel the panic spike. I've learned to scan receipts obsessively, count every penny, and bargain hunt like it's a full-time job. It's exhausting. I often skip meals or buy the cheapest food possible, not because I want to, but because there isn't another option. The guilt of knowing I'm sacrificing my health to make ends meet is a heavy weight on my conscience. What hurts most is how this financial pressure bleeds into every corner of my life. Social invitations become sources of stress rather than joy. Saying no to friends isn't just about saving money, it's about protecting my fragile mental state. The awkwardness of watching others order drinks or dinners I can't afford makes me feel isolated and ashamed. I'm constantly hiding the real story of how tight things are because I don't want to seem like a burden or fail at adulting. But the loneliness that comes from that silence is suffocating. Sleep is restless because my mind won't stop racing with what-ifs. What if the car breaks down? What if an unexpected bill comes? What if I lose one of my jobs? I lie awake at night imagining every worst-case scenario, running mental budgets and trying to map out solutions that don't exist. I know it's not healthy, but the fear of financial ruin feels too close to ignore. The stress has chipped away at my confidence, leaving me doubting my own worth and abilities. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just not smart enough, not disciplined enough, or if I'm simply stuck in a system that's rigged against people like me. I've tried to cope in different ways. Sometimes, I let myself daydream, brief escapes into a future where money isn't a constant worry. I picture having a stable job with benefits, a small savings account, maybe even a weekend getaway somewhere warm. Other times, I turn to small comforts, a cheap cup of coffee, a late-night walk, a few pages of a favorite book. These moments are tiny rebellions against the relentless pressure. I also try to remind myself that this isn't forever, that life can change. But those hopes often feel fragile, like they could shatter if reality presses too hard. There are dreams I've had to postpone, big ones. Going back to school for a degree that might open better opportunities. Starting a business. Moving to a different city with more promise. Even just getting health insurance feels like a distant luxury. I've accepted that for now, survival takes precedence over ambition. But that doesn't mean I don't ache for those deferred dreams. Sometimes, I catch myself holding my breath, hoping that something will shift, an unexpected raise, a better job, a break in the system, that could finally let me breathe easier. What keeps me going is the stubborn hope that life can improve, that this endless cycle of worry and sacrifice isn't all there is. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank account, even if it feels like the world says otherwise. I try to find small victories, making it through a tough week, sending a supportive message to a friend, learning a new skill online. These moments of resilience are my lifeline. Still, I can't shake the feeling of being trapped, of living in a system where expenses grow faster than income, where the rules feel stacked against people like me who aren't born into wealth or privilege. It's not just about money, it's about dignity, freedom, and the basic human right to feel secure and hopeful. Until then, I keep moving forward, one cautious step at a time, hoping the future I dream of isn't too far out of reach. I never thought I'd feel this way about money. Not like this, not so desperate, so drained, so utterly stuck. But here I am, 27 years old, working full-time and still feeling like I'm barely holding on to the edges of my life. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. No matter how hard I push, no matter how fast I run, I'm never getting ahead. The bills pile up faster than my paycheck grows, and every month it's a little harder to breathe. I grew up with a pretty average idea of money. My parents weren't rich or poor, just cautious. They taught me to save, to budget, to be responsible. But even with all that, I never learned how to handle this relentless, grinding pressure of trying to survive when everything feels like it's rigged against you. The rent, the groceries, the utilities, they don't just add up, they multiply. And my salary? It's practically frozen, stuck in place while inflation eats away at every dollar. Every morning, I wake up with this knot in my stomach. Not from anything specific, really, just the weight of all the things I need to figure out. How am I going to pay my phone bill this month? Should I cut back on groceries and risk eating less? Can I afford to replace my worn-out shoes, or do I need to keep wearing these holes in my soles? Sometimes I catch myself calculating whether it's cheaper to walk 30 minutes to work or risk the bus fare, even though walking drains me and makes me late sometimes. It's exhausting, this constant mental math and the never-ending decisions that feel like life or death. And the worst part? No matter how careful I am, no matter how much I scrimp, something unexpected always sneaks in, a car breakdown, a medical copay, a surprise fee. Those moments push me into a spiral of panic, and then I'm scrambling to cover the shortfall, dipping into whatever small savings I've managed to scrape together. I don't talk about this a lot. I guess I'm ashamed. Like, if I admit how hard it is, maybe people will think I'm weak or lazy or not trying hard enough. But the truth is, I work 2 jobs sometimes. I skip going out with friends because I can't afford it. I haven't taken a real vacation in years. And still, I feel like I'm sinking. Some days, I lie awake at night and think about what life would be like if I could just breathe for a minute. To not worry about money every second. To buy groceries without counting each item twice. To save for a future that doesn't feel like a distant, impossible dream. I want to buy a place to call my own. I want to start a family without fear of financial ruin. I want to chase passions and build a life that isn't just about survival. But those dreams feel like they're slipping further away every day. I've had to postpone going back to school because I can't afford the tuition and the loss of income. I put off seeing a therapist, even though I know I need one, because the copay is just too much. I've stopped thinking about retirement because, honestly, that's something for other people. People who aren't living paycheck to paycheck. Coping is a patchwork of small strategies that never quite fix the problem but help me hold on. I find tiny moments of joy, listening to music on my walks, texting a friend when I need to vent, or cooking a simple meal that feels like a treat. I try to keep my head down, work hard, and hope something changes. Sometimes I fantasize about winning the lottery or getting a huge raise, just to imagine a different life. But mostly, I just keep going. I've learned to swallow pride and ask for help when I can. Sometimes a friend slips me a few dollars or shares a meal. Sometimes a local food pantry fills the gap for a week. These moments remind me I'm not alone, but they also make me painfully aware of how fragile my situation is. One missed paycheck, one emergency, and everything could unravel. It's hard to explain the emotional toll this takes. It's not just stress, it's a deep, gnawing fear mixed with shame and frustration. I want to believe that if I work hard and play by the rules, things will get better. But lately, that belief feels like a distant memory. The system feels like it's designed to keep people like me trapped. Expenses rise, wages stagnate, and the gap grows wider. It's a cycle I can't break out of, no matter how badly I want to. I try to remind myself that this isn't permanent. That maybe, just maybe, if I keep pushing, something will give. Maybe I'll find a better job or a side hustle that actually pays. Maybe the economy will shift, or policies will change to help people struggling like me. But until then, I'm stuck. Stuck in a loop of barely making it, juggling bills, and sacrificing dreams. Sometimes I'm scared. Scared that I'll be trapped in this financial pressure forever, that I'll lose pieces of myself to the grind. But other times, I still cling to hope, the stubborn kind that refuses to die. Because if I give up on hope, then what's left? So, I keep going. One day, one paycheck, one small victory at a time. Because even in the darkest moments, I want to believe there's a future waiting for me. A future where money doesn't control me. A future where I'm free. It's funny how you can feel invisible and suffocated all at once. That's the best way I can describe living with this constant financial pressure, like I'm trapped in a shrinking room where the walls keep closing in, but no one else notices. Every day, I wake up knowing I have to stretch a paycheck that somehow feels thinner than the last, even though I'm working just as hard. The rent goes up, the grocery prices climb, bills keep piling, and my income barely moves. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every week, and no matter how fast I go, I'm stuck in place. Some days, I lie awake at night replaying every decision I made that led me here, or at least what I thought were good decisions at the time. I got a decent job right after college, trying to do everything right. Budgeting, cooking at home, skipping nights out, avoiding debt. But the reality is brutal. Those small sacrifices don't feel like enough when your paycheck vanishes faster than you can track. I still remember the sinking feeling when the landlord told me rent was increasing again. I asked if maybe I could stay on the old rate just a bit longer, explaining how tight things were. The response? A polite but firm no. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, the weight in my chest grew heavier. Sometimes, I think about how it used to feel before all this pressure. When I was a teenager, I dreamed big, traveling the world, starting my own business, maybe even buying a home one day. Those dreams feel distant now, like they belong to someone else's life. I've had to postpone them indefinitely. Saving for a down payment? Forget it. Taking a weekend trip? Maybe if I skip rent 1 month. Investing in myself with courses or new skills? Not when I'm trying to pay off last month's credit card bill. There's this constant background noise in my head, a mix of anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion. The news talks about inflation and economic recovery, but it doesn't feel like recovery when my real life is a series of compromises. I've cut back on everything non-essential, no new clothes, no dining out, no social events. Even the small joys feel out of reach. I sometimes skip meals to save money, not because I'm starving but because I tell myself, if I eat less, I won't need to buy groceries as often. That's a thought I never imagined I'd have to entertain as an adult. But it's not just the money. It's the emotional toll, the loneliness, the shame, the constant self-questioning. Why can't I make this work? Am I not smart enough? Did I pick the wrong career? Why does it feel like everyone else has figured this out except me? I've talked to a few friends about it, but I can tell they don't fully get it. Their worries seem different, less urgent. Some tell me to just hang in there or it'll get better, but those words sometimes feel hollow. It's hard to explain how exhausting it is to hope and be disappointed month after month. Still, I find small ways to cope. Sometimes I write, this helps me process my feelings and remind myself I'm not alone in this. Other times, I go for long walks to clear my head, even when it means dodging the temptation of a quick coffee or snack. I've started listening to podcasts about personal finance and mental health, trying to find strategies to manage both my money and stress. It's a slow process, but I'm learning to be a little kinder to myself. What keeps me going, honestly, is the hope that one day I'll break free from this cycle. That someday, my efforts will add up to something more stable. That the system that feels so rigged against people like me might shift, or at least that I'll find a way to navigate it better. Maybe I'll get a promotion, or a better job, or maybe even a side hustle that actually pays off. Maybe one day, I'll look back on this time and see it as a chapter that made me stronger, not just a struggle. For now, I take it day by day. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank account, even if it feels that way sometimes. I try to celebrate small victories, like making it through the month without overdraft fees or having a few dollars left over to treat myself. And when I feel trapped, I try to remember that this pressure doesn't define me. It's part of my story, but it's not the whole story. There's still so much I want to do, and somehow, I hold on to that. Living in this economic environment feels like walking a tightrope over a pit that's always ready to swallow me whole. But even with the fear, I'm still here, still trying, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.